to understand genetics, we must first understand the driving force for which it occurs. In this slide, we're looking at DNA. DNA is short for deoxyribonucleic acid, and it is the carrier for genetic information. As we've learned in previous lessons, that DNA is stored in the nucleus of the cell. Each unit of DNA is composed of a nucleotide. A nucleotide is made up of a phosphate group combined with a 5-carbon sugar and a base. Now, I'm going to give you a small little tidbit. Each time you see a word ending in an os, you know it's a sugar. So fructose, glucose, sucrose, it's a sugar. DNA is composed of a double helix, and each of its long parallel sides runs anti-parallel from 3' to 5'. If you take DNA, you break it down into small units. Each unit is composed of a phosphate combined with a sugar and a base. And when you extend the units into the full ladder, you have a sugar phosphate background. Now, you have to join each sides of the ladder, and they are joined together at the base. And there are rules to follow when you're pairing each base. A to T, G to C. Adenine always pairs with thymine. Guanine always pairs with cytosine. Adenine and guanine are purine. Cytosine and thymine are pyrimidine. The best way for you to be able to tell which is which is look at the Y. Cytosine, thymine, pyrimidine. If you can spell either of those words, then you can tell which is which. Let's meet our new friend, Gregor Mendel. He was born in 1822 and died in 1884. He is the father of genetics. He conducted experimentation with pea plants in a monastery. He was actually a monk between 1856 and 1863. He focused on physical characteristics of pea plants. He looked at height, flower color, seed color, whether the seeds were wrinkled or smooth. He was the one who coined the terms dominant and recessive. Unfortunately, his work wasn't recognized until after he had died. And he is essentially Charles Darwin's missing tag team partner. Darwin was able to suggest that animals or different species are able to pass their beneficial traits to the next generation, but he couldn't explain how heredity had taken place. And had his work been published before 1859, this would have helped Darwin a lot with his research. A gene is the basic unit of heredity. An individual's genetic composition is called a genotype. In the physical manifestation of the genotype is called the phenotype. So, in other words, the phenotype is what you see due to the genotype. An allele is essentially an alternative form of a gene. So you have a dominant gene and you have a recessive gene. If you have a homozygous, the letters are the same. If you have a heterozygous, the letters are different. So if you have a homozygous dominant allele, you have big A, big A. If you have a homozygous recessive allele, you have little a, little a. If you have a heterozygous allele, you'll have big A, little a. Let's take a moment to look at the type of alleles that we could potentially have. Alleles could come in three forms. It could be homozygous dominant, homozygous recessive, or heterozygous. You will usually see something that's homozygous dominant, big A, or whatever letter you're looking at. And if you're looking at recessive, you look at little a, little a. And if you have heterozygous, you'll have big A and then little a. The trick that you have to remember is that, let's say you're looking at eyes, for instance, and we'll show in later slides that I've used B to look at eye color, brown versus blue. Now, if you have eyes, big B, big B, big B, little b, little b, little b, you'll see that big B, they have brown eyes. Little b, blue eyes because it's recessive. But big B and little b together will still give me brown eyes because the dominant allele will always mask the recessive allele. And we'll see that demonstrated on later slides. A Punnett square is used to determine the ratio of the matrix between two different genotypes and be able to determine the phenotype. So, as before, we mentioned homozygous and heterozygous. So, if you mate male or female with a particular uh, genotype, let's say big B with little b, you'll see the offspring and what's the ratio of getting children or offspring with brown hair, brown eyes, of us, you're looking at genotype and phenotype. So we're calculating the genotype and we're looking for the phenotype. So it's like a marriage between the both concepts. In this Punnett square, I worked out the cross between two homozygous individuals. So I crossed between homozygous dominant and homozygous recessive. As you can see, we are generating heterozygous individuals. The dominant allele will always overshadow the recessive allele. So despite having the little b in each child, they will all have brown eyes. On this slide, I created a Punnett square to cross a homozygous dominant with a heterozygous. As you can see, the ratio is 50-50. If you have 4 children, Two of them will likely to have big B, big B. The other half will have big B, little b. In all cases, in all children, each kid would have brown eyes. On this Punnett Square, I performed a cross between a homozygous recessive individual with a heterozygous individual. As you can see, there's a 50-50 ratio between the homozygous recessive and the heterozygous. So essentially 50-50 ratio. Two of the children or offspring will have brown eyes, and the other half, or other two, will have blue eyes. So 50-50 ratio. Well, I kind of got the inspiration to nerd out a little bit. One of the shows I'm watching obsessively is A Game of Thrones, and I watched the show before, and now I'm reading the book, or listening to the book, and then I'm watching a show again as I finish various parts in the actual book. So it's actually really exciting, and this kind of gave me an idea for a genetics question or a genetics problem. And I just wanted to go ahead and apply science with a valid question or application. Game of Thrones is a live action TV series that's aired on HBO that's based on a book written by George R.R. Martin. If you haven't watched the show, you are missing out. It's awesome, awesome, awesome. The book is awesome too. It's all great. And you have a mixture of Lord of the Rings, Jerry Springer, Maury, and Dr. Phil. All types of drama. Excellent show, and this is an excellent application. So, like Maury, we're trying to figure out who is really the baby's father. So you have a marriage in the series between the houses of Baratheon and Lannister. So there are some discrepancies as to fraternity or not. I don't want to give away too much of the series or too many spoilers because I really want you to watch it. It's good. But this actually helps to apply science with media. Makes it less bland and boring, and a good way to learn something new. Okay, let's first meet the House of Baratheon. The guy in the beard, the big guy, is Robert Baratheon. He is the king. Their house sigil is the stag. Next to Robert, his two brothers are Stannis and Renly. And if you look at the pedigree, this chart, you can see that Robert has fathered an illegitimate child. The series never shows who the mother is, but genetically speaking, if you look at all three of these men, they all have dark hair. So we can apply our Punnett square from our eyes, and we can apply it to this. So we can assume easily that these guys either have big B, big B, or big B, little b. But since everyone in his family is of dark hair, we can kind of assume that these individuals have the genotype big B, which makes them homozygous dominant. Next, we're going to meet the House of Lannister. Their house sigil is the lion. The father's name is Tywin Lannister. He's a very important man, has held a lot of important titles, the Ward of the West, and a former Hand of the King. Very important position, very important man. He was married to a woman named Joanna. They produced children, 3 children. The twins are Jaime Lannister, Cersei Lannister. They were their fraternal twins, and Tyrion Lannister. Joanna, the mother, actually died in childbirth while giving birth to Tyrion Lannister. Tyrion Lannister is also a dwarf, and he's frequently referred to as the Imp. If you take a closer look at these individuals, you'll notice their hair. They are all blonde, or Tywin is a little older, so it's mostly gray, but you can see some hints of blonde. Blonde is a homozygous recessive allele. So it's, if we're using hair, we can pretend the same thing as the eye scenario. Big B, big B, big B, little b. So in this case, we're going to use little b, because it's homozygous recessive. Okay, so the houses of Baratheon and Lannister are joined by Robert and Cersei. Now, we have 3 children. We have Joffrey Lannister, Marcella, and Tommen. Okay, so we have a dark-haired individual and a blonde. And we have 3 children who are also blonde. We can assume that Robert Baratheon is Big B, Big B. Or even if he is Big B, Little B, he still will have brown hair. But since everyone in his family is dark-haired, for our intents and purposes, we'll say Big B, Big B. But Cersei, blonde. That is a recessive homozygous allele. Little b. If we look at our Punnett square, and if we cross the Big B with little b, we are looking at heterozygous individuals. And based on this Punnett square, can you tell me that these children are likely to belong to Robert? I don't want it to give away too much, but let's use our knowledge of genetics to determine if this is a possible result of this match. Good luck and watch the show.